So, what do you do when it just doesn't work? Well, you got to call it quits. Easier said than done. And obviously, it's not something I do every time, and it's not something you're going to do every time, because nobody's perfect. But sometimes you have to realise that whether this is a relationship that just doesn't feel right, or you're doing something that you thought you really wanted to do and it just doesn't work, just don't do it anymore. It's not a negative thing. If you're not in it, why do it? Sorry, the light is pretty bad in here. Sorry, I'm in my car. Especially with relationships, if the core values aren't there, it's not going to work. Sometimes, like with friends, if you don't wholeheartedly believe the same things deep down, like how you are as a person, what you deem as right, it's not going to work. You can have different political views, you can have all this, you can have different interests and stuff, but as long as you all agree on what's moral and what you won't do, like talking about people behind their backs or saying something offensive or something very problematic, you'll get on fine. But those are the differences you can't have. And I think sometimes you've got to realise that you may look up to this person, because it may be family, it may be a relationship, you may look up to them and admire them, but sometimes you've got to realise that not necessarily that they're wrong, but it's not how you feel, it's not how you think. So when you're with them, you're either lying about who you are, they're not your friend, or that's not a good relationship. They're lying about who they are, same thing. Or you're just keeping it inside, which that's not on either. And if you're lying about who you are to them, you're not being yourself and you can't hold that relationship. Same goes for them. And if you're just going to ignore it, you're going to build up this resentment for that person. And that's the worst case scenario, because you may still love them, but sometimes it's better to leave that before there's resentment and there's hate, because ultimately you're going to feel worse off for that. And that means there is always that don't quit mindset when trying. However, there comes a time when you've got to quit this thing that you've been trying. And that takes a lot to learn. And it's not a sign, it's not a negative thing. It's self-care, it's self-respect. Because you're not putting yourself in this really, really detrimental to you environment. Because it's not a negative thing to quit, it's a negative thing to not try. Stay with me now. Because you can try everything in the world. You're not going to like everything. So don't feel bad that you've quit, and don't feel bad that when you're in this relationship, whether it could even be family. Everybody's family life is complicated. It just might not be right for you, and it might not be good for you. That doesn't mean hold resentment for that person, because ultimately the way they think is just what they deem right. It's how they've been brought up, it's what they feel. You can't hate them for it, but you can just go, I don't think us being together like this is good for either of us. And don't get me wrong, confrontation is fine. It's a important part of being alive. And having discussions, not arguments as such, but discussions and debates, it builds your mind, especially politics, or maybe you can challenge these people's core beliefs and go, maybe you shouldn't say that. And if they go, you know what, yeah, you're right, then they might be the person for you as such. But I'm talking deep down how people think, how they've been brought up, and how they're almost hardwired to be. Like, say you've got a friend who, he may have been through awful situations in his life, but he holds a resentment for a group of people. One, you're not a therapist. You can't change that. It's not your job. And two, it's going to start arguments. And if you don't believe that, if you stay with them, you might start to think that too. Food for thought. You are the people you're surrounded with. That's another topic for another video, because I feel like everybody talks about it, but everybody needs to talk about it. And sometimes it just doesn't feel right. Back to it. Because not everything's meant to be. And if you hold on to these things that aren't meant to be, you're taking up the space for the things that are meant to be. If you stay in this relationship, whether that's friendship, platonic, love, family, you're taking up this space for healthy relationships and depriving yourself of an opportunity because you won't quit that one. Obviously, it takes time and it takes experience to learn these things, to know when to quit. But you've got to start somewhere. And what's the worst that can happen? You go to somebody and you go, I just don't think this is working. And if they're an alright person, they're going to go, I understand that. I agree. You leave it. And maybe one time in the future, you come together and you go, oh, we've both changed, matured. We've got quite a good common ground now. We've both been through things, see each other's side of it, and you might click, spark, straight away, and you can do it again. But if it doesn't feel right, stop it. And if something feels off, stop. That's all you can do. And obviously, it's going to be an upsetting feeling. You're going to feel alone. You're going to feel, oh, I miss this person, but that's all a natural process. If you didn't go through that after stopping seeing someone constantly or whatever, or being with this person, then maybe you weren't supposed to be there anyway, you know? And even if you do feel bad, you can still acknowledge that and go, there are better things to come. There is always a new door. One door closes, another door opens. So, thanks for listening. It's Boxing Day. Don't know why. No watch. Don't know why I'm looking at my wrist. So, everybody that celebrated, hope you had a very Merry Christmas. And to those who don't or didn't, I hope you had a great day. Or maybe you were at work and enjoyed that double pay because it was a holiday. So, thanks for listening. Peace out.